everyone, welcome to the next chapter in Tony Imperatrice Live Rogue Festival and beyond. We're going to take a look at the rig so far. I have the rig functioning. We are still dealing with looper issues, and we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about the details of why that is such an important issue in the music that I'm planning on playing, and why we need to look for a better solution than what I've got. And I'll play some examples to show you just exactly what's going on. Now, I don't have any speakers on the rig just yet, so the way I'm doing this so that you can hear what's going on and hear my voice and all of that, I've got my little video camera set up. It's picking up my voice, but obviously it's not going to pick up any of the music I play. So I've got you plugged in directly into my Tascam recorder. We're recording directly off the system, and then I'm listening through my earpieces, and that way you hear what's going on and you can hear me talk about it all at the same time. So at any rate, let's bring the camera in a little closer and I'll show you what's on the rig thus far and what it's used for. So first thing, look at this panel. This is to my right hand side when I'm seated at the keyboard stack. So if we look at this, we've got, this is just a small mixer that I'm using as a headphone amplifier. I can get a slightly different mix. I can listen to a click track if that's necessary that the audience won't hear, because why would they want to hear that, right? And then I could also mix things so that the rhythmic elements are stronger here than they are on the house mix, that kind of thing. So this gives me a lot of options for listening through my earpieces in a way that's going to allow me to really play the music well and accurate and really do a good job for the audience without the audience being disrupted by the things that, the little changes I'm making to make that happen. Then we have our two main effects processors. This one is handling the effects that are coming off of the organ emulator system that's running on my computer and is played from the bottom keyboard, the main keyboard, which is a Studio Logic SL88. And it basically controls the whole functions of everything. And we'll share a little more about that later. This effects processor has the upper keyboard, which is a Roland self-contained pipe organ emulator, and that also runs through my looping system. And so this is where we get all of our rhythmic elements. Now, one of the pieces I'm planning on playing includes a synthesizer solo that I played on a mini Moog on the recording, and I'd like to get, Behringer makes a really nice MIDI module that's a copy of the mini Moog that I can play from the SL88, and if I manage to get that set up, then that'll run through this a third effects processor so that can stand alone and have its own effects mix just for that synthesizer. And then we have our main mixer. This is the house mix, as it were. All of the various elements come in here. Right now it's being sent out through this to go to my audio recorder so that you can hear the music that I'm playing, because I don't have speakers set up. When we have amplifiers and speakers, we have a graphic equalizer that will balance the sound, because in different environments you might run into different things. I might have to take different speaker setups with me depending on where I'm playing, and so we need the control of the graphic equalizer to be able to balance that correctly for the audience to hear a nice mix. I can also set up a direct line from here into a house system if I happen to be playing somewhere where that kind of thing is going on. And let me adjust the camera one more time and we'll take a look at the rest of this. Things are kind of tight in here, so I can't really get the best camera angle, but I think you can see all of the elements that are going on here. So the Studio Logic keyboard is connected to my computer and is running a pipe organ emulation software from that that's on that computer, and then the audio from the computer comes back over to the mixer that I showed you before. This is the Roland C200. This is a self-contained pipe organ emulator, and actually if I had two of these it'd be a little easier setup in some ways, but not as good in other ways. So this unit is primarily my rhythmic elements are happening here. Some melodic elements are happening here. Most of this is going to be melodic, but every once in a while doing rhythmic elements. I can set up different presets so I can have sounds at a push of a button. On the Studio Logic machine, I have a foot pedal that I can advance through a series of presets that are set up here. You can kind of see this little screen here. I can control up to 4 items from this keyboard in terms of sounds, controlling devices. So when I switch a preset on the keyboard here, it sends a message to the organ emulator on the computer to select the preset sound that I want, that I've set up on that organ emulator for that particular section. Now, for what I'm doing today, we have kind of a full organ sound. And I can also move around to different sound combinations that I've done on the presets in the organ emulator, and then I access those presets from here. I can also change the effects settings on the effects processors, so I don't ever have to like reach over and change a setting on the effects processor. As I'm going through my setups here with the foot pedal, it's just all automatically changing all of those things. Now, the C200 will not accept those MIDI messages, so any preset changes I make on the C200 have to be with these buttons, and I'm working out as I play all of the moves I have to make to press the button at the right time, press the preset pedal change at the right time, press the looper at the right time, all of that good stuff, and I'll show you a little bit of how that all comes together. So what's been helpful in all of this is taking copious notes. The first thing I did was work out which pieces I wanted to play and what their tempo was, and the reason for that was that way I could set up my echo timings as a series of different note values at different tempos. So I have 15 effects setups, each with a different note value at a different tempo. I also worked out how I would want my presets for each of the songs that I'm playing to work on the Studio Logic keyboard, and the presets for the organ emulator on the keyboard, on the computer, and so on and so forth. And so having a lot of notes really makes sense. I'm playing 5 pieces for the show at the Rogue Festival, and I have consumed 30 preset spaces on the keyboard. I need to add several more for making smoother transitions as I refine this. It's probably going to come up to about 35 to 40 presets that will be used. Thankfully, the Studio Logic keyboard has 245 preset slots available, so I got plenty of room to do all of that. So this device is a real gem for what I'm doing. Okay, let me put the camera back so you can get an overall view, and we'll see how this all works. Okay, so we have our 2 keyboards on the floor. I'll throw in a still shot of what's down there. We've got my pedal board for doing bass notes. That is also a Studio Logic product. It's a 17-note pedal board. And then over just to the right of that, I've got a set of foot pedals that are for changing the presets up or down on the Studio Logic keyboard, which in turn changes the sound presets on the computer and the settings on the effects processor. And then you can see my little tiny RC1 looper. And we'll take a look at why the RC1 is completely inadequate for what I'm doing. So my music is created around using the antique sounds of a pipe organ processed through modern effects processors to get a completely different effect. And so one of those effects is to create complex rhythms, which would otherwise be impossible simply playing on a pipe organ. You wouldn't be able to get your fingers to maneuver quite like that. And so I'm using a couple of different tricks. A lot of this kind of thing started with Robert Fripp long ago, using reel-to-reel tape decks stacked together and running the tape at different speeds and then playing to the repeats that would happen. Later on we had tape echoes, where you'd have a loop of tape and you would have several tape heads and you could do all kinds of reverb and delay effects with that. And then of course later on this went digital, where you would take samples and repeat them according to a computer algorithm. And all of this is a lot of fun, and I've always been fascinated with it. And so I've created some things around that. Now, one of the tricks to create a complex rhythm is called the dotted eighth note trick. And so what you do is you set the timing of the echo to what a dotted eighth note would come out against the tempo you're playing at. In this case, it's 116 beats a minute, and the dotted eighth note creates a long triplet. So and if you play eighth notes on top of the dotted eighth notes, you get a more complex rhythm. With the looper, then I can layer other things on top of that. And then get a layered complex rhythm effect that's not possible without echoes, perfectly timed echoes, and looping. And then I can set that all up and play on top of it. So I have a slightly different echo timing on the lower keyboard. So that's a longer delay. That's at eighth notes. Is that eighth notes? I want to tell you the wrong thing. No, that's at quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's timed to that 116 beats a minute. 2, 3, 4. So let's see if I can put this loop together as prescribed on my music here. Here we go. So now I have my looped stack. I've combined 4 complex rhythmic elements to make a really complex rhythmic element, and then now I can play on top of that, and the longer timing of the echo on the lower keyboard will still be synchronized with the layered effect that I've created. as you can see, the little RC1 looper works absolutely perfect that far. Here's where I run into trouble. Obviously, that's not the whole song, right? I go into another section, and I need to record a different set of loops. I could just erase the RC1 and then start over, but that's going to get me in trouble in the next section of the song where I have to recall that first set of loops. So without a looper that doesn't have multiple memory levels or multiple tracks, I can't really perform this piece live properly because I have to, it just doesn't work out. Now the other thing that happens and why I need to work on investing in a better looper, there's another piece that I'm playing that involves loops that have to be preset. And with a multi-track looper, I would be able to set those up on a memory, and then I would be in control of where the various elements came in and out. Then I would be able to kind of feel the audience, and if they're really digging the piece, then I can stretch it out. If maybe not so much, I can just, abridge it a little bit. Right now, I set up a backing track for that song on this recorder, and I'm playing to that. And that's okay, but it doesn't allow me any flexibility. And then the other thing is, if I screw up, I'm kind of stuck. I'm going to be out of sync with the backing track, and I'm just going to have to, where am I? And that's not going to be good. Whereas if I had each of the elements that are involved in that backing track separate loops on a multi-track looper, that would be a different matter. For this performance, I'm going to do what I have to do, right? So, any rate, the thing is that, of course, I think for all of us right now, money is very tight. And one has to just make those compromises that are necessary. I may have to change up the arrangement of my music a little bit or do what I have to do. But hopefully I've got a few things coming up, and maybe I'll be able to set some money aside and get a better looper. And once that happens, I'll show you how that affects everything and why it's a better deal. At any rate, that's the rig so far. So Rogue Festival's coming up first 2 weekends of March. On the first Friday of March, I'll be at the Spectrum Gallery here in Fresno at 10 p.m. And that will be the first ever performance of my original music in front of a live audience. And I'm really excited about this, so I hope you can join me for that if you're going to be in the Fresno area. And then we have other live performances coming up after that. So thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.